If you are planning on doing an African safari soon, do not make the same mistake that I did before traveling to Kenya, which was underestimating the cost of shots and medications that the CDC recommends that you take before traveling to Africa, which, by the way, insurance will most likely not cover. I'll tell you guys exactly how much my medical bill was and all the shots and medications that I got before going, but before I do, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Yllara Maia, and this is part 2 of my review of EF Ultimate Breaks Kenya African Safari Trip. And the main things that we'll be covering in this video are the 5 top things that you should know before booking this trip, including important information about food, transportation, and the exact locations that you'll be staying in if you do decide to go on this trip. Number 1 is obviously plan for extra medical expenses on top of the total cost of your trip. The CDC recommends that you get hepatitis A, typhoid, and yellow fever vaccines on top of the malaria pills. So just for the visit to the travel clinic, which I had to go to in order to get this prescription, they charged me, wait for it, $239.40. And for the vaccines, $444.50, totaling a whopping $683.90 that I did not expect to pay before going on this vacation. Now, you're obviously not obligated to get any of these vaccines. If you like to live life on the edge, you can always just apply bug spray every single day. Which leads us to number 2, which is the mosquito situation. Most of these diseases that I mentioned before are transmissible through mosquito bites, so I do get why some people can get skeptical about traveling to Africa. But honestly, the only times that I was actually concerned and would like drown myself in bug spray was when we were near water, so in Lake Naivasha and Amboseli. But all of the beds do have mosquito nets around them to help protect you at night. And if you want extra protection, just use bug spray or wipes before going to bed. I highly recommend the wipes because they do take up less space in your bag. So let's move on to number 3. Out of all the EF trips that I have ever taken, I honestly believe that the accommodations for this trip were the absolute best. There was only one that I wasn't a huge fan of, which I will tell you in a bit. In Nairobi, we stayed at the Best Western Plus Westlands. Super modern, super clean, loved it. For Amboseli, this was my absolute favorite. This was the Old Tukai Lodge in Amboseli National Park. This lodge was beautiful. There were monkeys running around everywhere. The view surrounding the lodge was amazing. You could literally see Mount Kilimanjaro right there, and every day we would wake up and there would be like different animals right around the fence. One morning I woke up super early to watch the sunrise, and there was this massive water buffalo staring right at me, like literally like 2 feet away from the fence. Thank God for that electrical fence. The next one was the Lake Naivasha Crescent Camp, which was not my fave. I think my roommate and I were just unlucky because we got the smallest rooms out of everyone, and I'm really picky with bathrooms, and not that the bathrooms weren't clean, they just weren't updated. But there was hot water if you left the shower running long enough, so I was really grateful for that. In Masai Mara, we stayed at the Sarova Mara Game Camp Safari Lodge. That's a mouthful. Which was beautiful. The tents were so nice, spacious, clean, modern. There was an entire vanity for us to get ready in. The food at this lodge was probably the best out of all the places that we stayed. Up next, we are going to be talking about transportation and the pacing for this trip. On the website, it says that the activity level for this specific trip is high, which I get because there is a lot of game drives involved. But if you hate walking, this trip is for you because you are going to be inside the Jeeps for like 80% of the time. The main form of transportation is obviously the safari Jeeps, which look like this. There's 2 seats in the front and 6 in the back, and the top moves up so you can stand on the seats during the game drives. For those of you who don't know what a game drive is, this is basically when you get in the safari Jeeps and drive around the national parks to look at the animals. You won't really be getting out of these Jeeps much when you're inside of these parks because it's not allowed unless you're in like a specific part of the park. So I definitely wish that I hadn't packed as many pairs of shoes as I did. One thing that I wasn't expecting is that to get from one city to the other, we were also taking the Jeeps. So you're going to be in them for like hours at a time. So I definitely recommend bringing a pillow and snacks for the ride. And be prepared for it to get bumpy at times, especially when you're driving within the parks because they are dirt roads. So for all my people that have motion sickness, don't forget your Dramamine. If you found this information helpful so far, hit that like button because it helps us so much. And also make sure to stay until the end because I have a surprise for you. For number 5, we are going to briefly talk about 2 things, food and noise. days. And I know that might not make any sense, but bear with me. For food, most of the meals that you'll have will be buffet style at the hotels or lodges that you'll be staying at, with the exception of the farewell dinner, which is at this super cool restaurant called Carnivore in Nairobi. This restaurant serves like Brazilian style rodizio, but they are famous for their exotic meats like crocodile, ostrich, and ox balls. The camel meatballs were actually really good, but the ox balls... Oh, and then remember when I said that everyone thought we were famous? So we show up at this restaurant all dressed up because it's our farewell dinner, and typically people dress up for the farewell dinner. And it was also an ambassadors only trip, so everyone had cameras, and EF's videographer was there with his camera, and we were just creating content. And we were a big group, so we get up onto this courtyard to take like group pictures and videos. And everyone's staring at us like, what are these people doing? And then all of a sudden, half the restaurant takes their phones out and starts taking pictures of us. We had people like come up and ask what TV show we were from. It was wild. Speaking of wild, let me tell you what I meant about the noise. During this safari trip, if you wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of screaming children, don't worry, it's the monkeys. And at Lake Davasha, the birds scream at night. So if you are a light sleeper, make sure to bring earplugs. So here's my surprise for you. If you have never traveled with EF Ultimate Break before, make sure to book with my personal link that I'm gonna go ahead and put in the description below, so you can get a discount of $100 off your first trip. And if you still feel like you need more information about Kenya African Safari before you book your trip, make sure to watch this next video, which is part 1 of the vlog series for this trip that I just took with EF. Until next time, and happy travels.